I'm Lexi Davis, a love embodiment coach who helps people create a love that feels like home, and I'm here to bring more romance and playfulness into the world. I'm also an international retreat host, vibe curator, and human connector. I serve people through my business, Alive to Enjoy, and this podcast where I invite guests from around the world to sprinkle their wisdom and expand your perspective so you can create the deepest love you possibly can reach in this lifetime. I also want you to live the most joyous life, whatever that looks like to you, and I hope that this slice of the internet brings you lots of smiles and helps you keep your heart open. Thank you for choosing Heart Snuggles to be in your ears each week, and I'm so glad you're here with me. Welcome, Heart Snugglers! I'm so excited to be back with you guys and to bring this gorgeous guest who was an online friend and we met briefly in person in Spain, and now we're here connecting again on the podcast. So I'm really excited to bring her. She's an incredible, inspiring digital nomad. And go ahead and tell them a little bit about yourself.
Of course. Yeah, so my name's Liz. You can find me online at Lis Kanzler. And I have been a digital nomad for the last decade of my life, but I recently decided to exit the lifestyle. And now I am a digital nomad coach and mentor. So I help essentially nomads to navigate this very intricate lifestyle. And other than that, I'm just a very passionate human being. So I've done a lot of projects around my career, and overall I have so many different hobbies and friends around the world. So that's a little bit about myself.
Yay, we're both retired nomads now.
Yeah.
Okay, so the first question of the podcast is, what was the last random act of kindness someone did for you?
Wow. Well, I definitely think of my boyfriend, Ricardo. Yesterday, I had a really difficult day, challenging, one of those days where you just wake up with the wrong foot and you feel all the anxiety come to you and lots of questions, doubts. And I woke up and the whole day was feeling strange. I wasn't feeling like myself. I was feeling like, I don't know how to explain it, but he was really trying to look through my anxiety and find ways in which he could lift me up in all sort of ways, from the very beginning, breakfast and coffee, but then also creating like an exercise we could do together creatively to get me out of my head. And then in the afternoon, he brought me to this outside festival so we could dance and let loose. And that helped me a lot. And I did not think that by the end of the day, I was going to be smiling and laughing and loving the sunset vibes with everyone. But I was able to get out of my head. So that's, I think, one of the biggest acts of kindness that someone can do for you, really understanding your psyche, understanding how they can help you, and doing that over and over throughout the day until you finally get out of your head.
It's so cute. I really love that. Such a sweetie. And that's what partnership is, right? It's like we're there for each other in these moments and we're seeking to understand each other. And instead of taking it personally or, getting upset at you, it's no, let me actually support you through this. And so that's amazing. And the second question that I like to start the podcast with is, what would you tell your younger self about love? Anything about relationships or love?
Wow. I would tell my younger self that I should never doubt my belief in true love and that I will find that one person that will complement me in the best of ways, in the truest of ways. And that it is a cliche to say that when you find the right one, you know it, but it really is like that. And your entire world changes. Things that seemed important to you are not important anymore. You're able to overlook certain aspects because deep down that is the right person for you and you're willing to fight through the discomforts as well.
Yes, you definitely have to fight through the discomfort. Ah, so cute. I'm such a big believer in finding that true love. So, and really creating it, because once you have it, that's not it. So that's not where it ends. But before we dive into that, I'd love to hear kind of like, what has your relationship journey been as a digital nomad? Because as a fellow nomad, I know the difficulties of that. So kind of like to hear like how you got to where you are now.
Yeah. Love as a nomad is a very interesting topic. It's actually one of the topics that stands out the most with my clients and in my programs because it is a science. There's so many aspects to it that become very convoluted and difficult. And people that enter the nomadic life don't understand how much they're actually giving up. especially in the landscape of love. So, as a digital nomad, I was lucky enough to have one partner that I was with for 3 years, and we did the digital nomad life together. We lived in South Africa, we lived in Spain, in Portugal, and in Germany together. But it definitely became complicated because we had different outlooks in life. He was not a digital nomad before our relationship. It was just due to our relationship that then he decided to travel more. But that is the main problem when two people want different things, either they have different traveling styles. One wants to travel faster, the other wants to travel slower, or in general, one wants to at some point settle down, but the other one still has that travel instinct in them. So there's a lot of different dynamics that play in a relationship when you're traveling, and it's very, very difficult to actually keep a committed monogamous relationship alive. So for the last, I had a few very important connections here and there, but it always would break due to the distance or due to my decision of leaving to the next destination. And that's what I say. When you're a digital nomad, time becomes your biggest enemy because at the end of the day, there's always a limited amount of time that you have to enjoy that connection with someone until you leave or they leave or paths just take apart and grow separate ways. So, although it wasn't easy to keep those connections alive, I still enjoyed my single life a lot. And I learned so much in this last 3 years, so much so that now that I finally decided to exit the nomadic life and base myself in Cape Town, South Africa, I found the love of my life. So that's how beautiful synchronicities and the timing of life happens.
I just got full body chills. I would love to hear the story of you guys meeting and yeah, you knowing that this is the love of your life. What was that feeling? Kind of describing that.
Yeah, it's a very complicated story, but essentially how I see it is for the last 3 years of my life, I always told myself, when I find the right person, I will stop traveling.
Mhm.
I'm willing to give up my nomadic life for the right person, but that was kind of the wrong way to think about it. And it wasn't until I made the decision for myself and really reflected, is this nomadic life still serving me in the same way that it did 5 years ago? Yes or no? And I could feel with my entire body that it was a no. My nomadic life was adding more strain to my lifestyle that it was adding positive feelings. So after a lot of therapy and a lot of reflection, I decided that it was time to let go. And obviously it was difficult because I had been doing the nomadic life for a decade and it's difficult to separate yourself from your nomadic identity. But when I made the choice for myself that it is time to separate myself from that and come to South Africa and commit to this place, that's when he entered my life. Now, it wasn't a normal like love story where, you meet one person, you're both single, you fall in love, and you start a relationship. It was a bit more complicated than that. I had previously reconnected with my ex-boyfriend, the one that I had been nomading for in those 3 years that I was sharing about earlier. And I was not expecting this reconnection to happen because we had been apart for 3 years. We were friends, really good friends. And at that point, we hadn't seen each other in over 2 years because he was doing a really long trip and we hadn't coincided anywhere. And then when I arrived to South Africa, we reconnected. And that was a beautiful story in its own. I was not expecting it. And we had a lot of quality time. And then afterwards, I wasn't sure exactly how to proceed because even though he was an ex-boyfriend of mine and I loved him very much and I saw the potential for a new relationship, at the same time, I also questioned whether or not this was the right person for me because obviously there had been a breakup already before. And even though we had changed a lot as individuals and we were complementing each other better, I still felt that he wasn't my person. But anyways, weeks went by, months went by, and in total we had reconnected for 6 months already. And I took some time to go back to Europe. So this all happened in South Africa, but then I took some time to go to Europe to sort of assess everything, to rethink everything. And when I came back to South Africa, it was to give this relationship a chance. And little did I know that that's when I was going to meet Ricardo, my current boyfriend. So when I met Ricardo, things became quite interesting just because I was not expecting someone to change my life in such a profound way. Around that time, when I met Ricardo, me and my ex-boyfriend with whom I had reconnected, we had decided to try out an open relationship because I felt as though I wasn't ready for a relationship with him. Now I know that it was because he wasn't my person. Back then, I didn't know why I wasn't feeling ready. So as we were trying the open relationship, that's when I met Ricardo. And at first we were friends for, I think, like a few weeks, up to a month. But it was very obvious that we both felt a lot more for each other. And at some point we connected on a deeper level. We kissed. It was a very magical kiss. And from the very get-go, there was something different about him. And yeah, after that, it was a really difficult period of my life. It went on around, I think, 2 months where I had to essentially navigate these two men in my life and understand what it is that I want and which of those two men is the right person for me.
Yeah, that's really hard when you love someone so deeply that you've had this connection with. I really experienced that with my past lover, and it took me over a year and a half to really fully detox that relationship and to get it out of my system. And so it's so hard when you're confronted with a reconnection with your past and then a new, and it's like, how do I choose? And so what did you decide ended up being like important for you in relationship?
Yeah, I mean, it really was a hard decision. I think it was one of the hardest decisions of my life, honestly. And I remember even we were in contact back then. This was already 2 or 3 months ago. And I looked advice, I seeked advice from you because I know that, I mean, this is your forte, and you gave me really important advice. And I remember I reflected so much around this situation. I journaled so much. I even, talked about it with my therapist. And at the end of the day, I came to the realization that it was two different types of love. One with my ex-boyfriend, it was the love that I wanted. It was more like a love of the mind. It was my mind trying to convince me that this was the right person for me because he's an incredible human, because we have the history that we have, because I trust him fully, because he's always supported me, he's loved me in the right ways, etc., etc. So my mind was sort of trying to convince me that I should move forward with him because there was no risk. He had never let me down. I knew exactly what his character was. We had known each other for 5 years already. So I had proof that he was the person he was, saying that he was, and that he loves me in the right ways. And then on the other hand, there was this new person, right? Ricardo, whom I felt this passionate love. I could feel it from my heart space. It was really like a true type of love, a wild, passionate, adventurous type of love. But at the same time, I only knew him from a month, 2 months, very recent compared to a 5-year connection, right? So I was put in a situation where I had to decide either I go with my intuition, with my heart space, with my instinct, with what I want, what I know is what my soul wants, or do I cling onto the safety net, onto this person that I know is good for me, but that maybe I don't love in the way that I would want to love him?
Mhm.
And it was really hard for me to come to this realization. It didn't happen from one day to the other. It was a lot of moments, a lot of reflection, but it came down to that. Are you willing to trust your intuition and jump into the deep end with someone that you've just met? And I did. I decided that it was the person for me, Ricardo.
Mm. And I think, from being a digital nomad, you really learn. Personally, I've learned so much to strengthen my intuition through traveling and knowing that you have to follow your instincts in so many little moments to big moments. And as you start to build that trust with yourself, you can't deny the feeling. And yes, that feeling brings you into the unknown. And yet that's always, where the magic happens. But it is such a scary point to make that decision and to commit to that. Like you're saying, you don't know this guy. Are these feelings real? Then your mind gets in the picture of your intuition. Is it my intuition? Is it my mind? It is just so much to sift through.
Yeah, of course. No, intuition is one of the biggest skills that you'll learn as a traveler. You have to. You only, there's so many situations where you're going to have to trust that inner gut, because there's situations where logic is not going to help you because you're not going to have enough information. When you're somewhere in a country that you don't know, with people that you don't know around you, and you're maybe in a situation where your instinct is telling you to not trust a certain person or not go a certain place, like that is something that your body is telling you, and we need to learn how to trust your own body. So yeah, I've harnessed intuition throughout the last decade of my life, and that's actually one of my biggest teachings in my programs that I share and that I teach to other digital nomads is how do you harness, how do you strengthen that intuition? Because that will guide you through life, and flowing with that has brought me to where I'm now, and all the decisions I've made with my intuition have been the right ones. So yeah, it wasn't easy, but I'm so proud of myself that I listened to my gut. And looking back, there hasn't been a single moment of doubt, or yeah, I don't regret the decision at all.
Mm-hmm. And I'd love to hear how this relationship is different. What are the qualities or energies that this relationship feels different and more true to your soul's desire?
Yeah, what I've noticed with this person is that it's funny because in this 3 years that I was single, in this last 3 years, I had four important connections. And I always saw it in a way that each connection was very focused on one aspect of love. I don't know if we talked about this privately, but essentially one connection was very physical, the other connection was very intellectual, the other connection was very adventurous, the other connection was very much protective, like he would protect me and put me in this pedestal, and he was like the man. And each of these connections I was able to experience fully for that specific aspect, but the rest of the important qualities around love were not as predominant or not as fulfilled. And I knew that there was someone out there who would fulfill me in each of the most important qualities of love. And that is what this person right now, Ricardo, is giving me and is allowing me to feel. It's like all the facets of love are being nourished in the best of ways. I don't feel like there's anything that I'm missing with him. And the qualities that I was looking for in a person that he doesn't have, I really don't care about. I'm able to overlook them. So yeah, it's just this very holistic type of love, where he's my best friend, while at the same time he's the best lover that I've had, while at the same time he protects me and makes me feel like a queen every day. And also he compliments me in all the ways that I want to be complimented, be it the hobbies that we have, be it the way that we see life, be it the playfulness that we experience, that we bring into our existence. Everything works well. He feels like a copy of me. And this is actually a very interesting topic to talk about as well. Is it better to have someone that is very similar to you or different, and where you can complement each other? With him, with Ricardo, he is a one-to-one copy of who I am. And I fall in love with him because he sees life the same way that I see life. And he interacts with life in the same way that I do.
Yeah, it makes it so easy to move through life when you both can see in the same way and know how to support each other and be there for each other. And it simplifies everything, sharing similar interests and, visions and future. And it allows it to just lock in a lot, like that foundation and that love to lock in so much quicker when you are so similar. But I think everyone's love is unique, and like it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to have what you're describing. That's not the only form of a perfect true love for you. Everyone's love is so unique, but I love what you're describing, and I see so many benefits of that, and it just brings a lot of ease into relationship, which is what we need because it's hard combining lives with someone else, and we always have our own experiences and we're coming from our own perspectives. And so when you start to merge and decide to choose to do life with someone, that can bring up so much. And yeah, so that just makes it a lot easier what you're describing.
Yeah, and another important thing is also the past experience and past traumas. If you can relate to each other's traumas, it can make things easy as well as hard. And as you said, every relationship is different, right? So maybe with Ricardo right now, what I'm experiencing is we do have similar life stories and we have similar family units. And so I can relate a lot to his pain, and he can also empathize with mine very well. And that helps us quite a bit. I actually found it to be quite healing. Now we've just come from the Christmas holiday, visiting his mother and his brother. And I was able to see my own family dynamic a little bit within his. And it's quite interesting how that connects you and bonds you more with your partner. Yeah.
Yeah, and bringing that compassion too, because even when you find your true love or, this perfect partner for you, it doesn't mean they're a perfect human being. And there's still things you have to navigate and accept and love those parts of themselves that have been craving for love, just like the parts of yourself that so desperately need to be loved through relationship. I find that most of our pain was caused in relationship. And it really needs to be transformed and loved and healed through love and through healthy love. And so, yeah, when you're brought into a new partnership, or even if you've been in it for a long time, I've been talking to a lot of my girlfriends who are married and been with a partner for 10 years, and they still experience moments of doubt and does he love me? And, these fears that are so deeply ingrained in us. And so, anyways, but just remembering that, like, I always like to remind my clients that, like, your man is still a man and he's not going to be this like perfect person and have no flaws, and but to still love those parts of him. And like you were saying, you overlook those, in our minds we think he has to have this and this on these lists, but in reality, like when you're delivered this man, it's like he is so much greater than that, and he has these things that you just get to learn to accept, and that's what love really is about, I find.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I always think back to what Ricardo shares with me is like, I need to tell him how he can be the best man for me. So he needs to learn, he needs to understand fully like what things I need for him to be this perfect man, right? And of course, there's no such thing as perfect, but we strive for that. I want to also be as perfect as I can for him, and I want to upskill myself and learn about the world and learn about his interests and just grow as a human being, grow as an entrepreneur so that we can create a future together in the ways that we envision. So yeah, I love that reminder to check in with each other, like how can I be the best version of myself for you? How can I be the best woman for you? Please share with me so that I know in each and every situation and every challenge that you encounter as a couple, it's an opportunity to grow. It's an opportunity to talk, communicate with understanding and compassion. And that's something that we practice with a lot of intention to communicate. And I think that is one of his biggest qualities as a man. It's that he's able to communicate well, and he's able to request from me to communicate with him when things are important.
I'd love to get more specific about this so that the listeners can understand. So what does it look like to communicate well and communicate with intention?
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, I think it is a matter of noticing the small gestures, like the energy shift. When something happens, you realize that the person in front of you has changed their facial expression, has changed their body posture, right? Something's off. As soon as you notice that, for me and for him, it's a matter of asking, "Hey, love, is everything okay? What's up? Communicate with me, talk to me. I'm here." And then it's really a matter of practicing vulnerability. So whoever is in a position that something has affected them, it's important that they communicate vulnerably why they have changed their energy, what has affected them, right? So generally how we do it is we sit down and we really take the time that is needed. This is not something you can do in a rush. This is something that you both need to have as a top priority over any sort of activity that you're doing or plans that are in front of you. Take the time, make it a priority to talk in that moment, to sort through whatever has happened. So then we sit down and we really calmly, and this is, I think, the key word, calmness. We calmly talk about the change of dynamic, the change of energy, the thing that happened for someone to get hurt or disappointed or whatever, triggered. And we like to share both perspectives, really calmly take the time that we need to give context as of why this hurt us or disappointed us or whatever it was, and explain the thought process in our heads. You did this and I thought this, and then this created this reaction in me and blah, blah, blah. And then once one person is finished with their the explanation. It's the other person's turn to explain fully what their perspective was, maybe a backstory so that the person understands why a certain thing happened. I can give you a very clear example. For instance, a couple of days ago, I was playing a voice note from a friend, and in the first 10 seconds of the voice note, you could hear that my friend was sharing something about my ex-boyfriend, the person that I was in a sort of love triangle with, right? And the name was spoken out loud, and Ricardo, my boyfriend, heard that. And I noticed, we were in the same room, and I noticed him hearing that, and I didn't want him to get in his head about it. So I just paused the voice note and just continued doing my thing. You know, I was moving into my new apartment, and we sort of continued the dynamic. But I could see that something had shifted. I could see that he was worried, or that he wasn't sure what was happening. So I went up to him again. I asked him, hey, what's wrong? What has changed? Let's talk. We sat down. He expressed how that felt like, you know, like feelings of doubt, or not feeling like I was hiding something from him, da 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 da. And then I went on and provided all the context that was necessary for him to really trust that it was a matter of wanting to protect him rather than hiding something from him. So I gave context as to what the conversation had been with my friend. I gave context with what the communication had been with my ex-boyfriend. I gave context as to how much I care for Ricardo and how he is my priority and that he's my person. And I reassured him so much on his position in our relationship. So by the end of the conversation, it was very clear that we both understood each other, essentially.
Yeah, and I mean, it's the number one skill I really teach and instill in all my clients is the communication, because a relationship is nothing without the communication, and it is what holds and what moves and what keeps the romance and the love so strong is having these conversations. And especially like you're describing these little moments, like my partner and I are constantly aware of when the energy shifts. It is so obvious to both of us, like even if I'm in a different room, he will say, baby, what's wrong? And I'm like, God damn it, you know? Sometimes I want to like be on my own, but there's no hiding in this kind of love. And it's the best thing because that's what we've been role modeled in our, you know, I mean, I don't want to speak for everyone, but in a lot of our parents' generations is sweep everything under the rug. You know, you feel that trigger, you feel that activation, and you're like, you deal with it on your own. You just pretend like it didn't happen, and it builds this resentment and builds disconnection. It builds this space, and it just continues to separate you versus just taking that time. It's not like either of us, sometimes it's really uncomfortable, but as soon as you do that, it brings that connection. Conflict is a portal to connection because this is what we really understand each other, and our minds just love to create stories. So when we can squash that and just reassure and provide that safety and that security to your partner, this is what love is about. And yeah, I think that's so beautiful that you guys have that foundation and that he is willing to take that time, because I found with previous partners, it was just they didn't want to do that. They didn't want to create that space and to talk through things, because obviously women love to talk. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, no, and it's important. I think for me, it was very easy that he already brought with him this value of communication. He has a past, he has played in a lot of team sports in his life, like at a professional level. So he understands the power of communicating in a team, and he sees the relationship being also a team. Of course, you know, you're a team of two, and you have to be able to talk about the things, not only the good things, but also the difficult things. And it can be applied to so many aspects of love. It's not only when challenges arise, but in bed, you know, when you're practicing intimacy, like there's such a great added benefit of being able to communicate. What do you like? What do I like? What do you think of this, etc., etc. And like that, so many other aspects of love are really based on this power of communication. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's important to bring it into the bedroom, because it's a whole nother very vulnerable and intimate space. And, you know, we've had so many differences. Most people have their own experiences with that. So I think it's a space where a lot of people don't bring that communication, where it is so needed, and that creates even more safety, especially for the feminine, anyone that's been, you know, had experiences where their body wasn't valued. There's just so much trauma with sexuality. So yeah, I think communication can add such safety. And I just really want to emphasize that like you get to feel safe in love, and doesn't necessarily, your partner might not know what that might look like for you. So as you're describing too, it's like the masculine wants to know how to provide for you, and it's your responsibility to share that with them and not expect them to know what you need, because we're all very different in what we need. And of course, we have some similarities, but you being able to vocalize that is so powerful. And I ran a program, Soft Girl Season, and a lot of women struggle to even identify what their needs are and how to even share that. And I struggled with that for so many years, but really starting to understand yourself, whether you're single or in partnerships, start to notice, like, okay, if you're getting triggered or you feel like something is wrong, what is the need associated to that? And I think that's the thing that we most often don't look at. It's, instead of just complaining about what he's doing, identify what is it that you need from him, instead of just bringing this energy of complaints, you know?
Yeah, no, of course. And that's where we go back to, communicating. How can I be the best of you? What do you need of me? Right? It's about this communication constantly. And this will change over time as well as, you develop in the partnership, but also as individuals, like your needs will be different. And it's important to keep checking in with each other on how you can best complement each other and be there for each other. So yeah, and I love how you mentioned again that power of vulnerability. And that is something that I live by, being able to be courageous enough to be vulnerable with not only your partner, but with yourself, with your friends. And really, like, vulnerability and courage go hand in hand, right? There's no act of vulnerability that doesn't require courage. And in partnership, there's so many instances where it is going to be uncomfortable to communicate to your person, hey, this hurt because XYZ, maybe you touch in a past trauma, you got triggered because of a wound. All of these things are normally our natural instinct is to just hide away from them, to suppress them, to maybe, swift over them. But it's important to be honest with ourselves. And for that, we have to have a clear understanding and self-awareness of our own identity, our own persona, our own system. And that's where therapy comes in, or journaling, reflection, meditation, all of that. The better you know yourself, the better you know your own traumas, the more you will be able to communicate with your partner and why things hurt when they came up.
Yeah, and that's so important for them to understand you better, because, it might be something so silly, that comes up and they're like, how is this affecting you? And you're like, I don't know. And then you sit and think and you're like, oh, wait, of course, because this, and this happened to me in my past. And then they can bring their love to you instead of bringing their defense to you, thinking that you are, just causing troubles or whatever. It's no, this is actually something that's happened. So it allows, vulnerability always allows for you to be loved more. And we often fear the opposite of when we share vulnerability. We think that we're going to not receive the love, but if you have a good partner, they're actually going to infuse the love that part of you needs.
Course, of course. Yeah, another example that I wanted to share that just popped into my mind because it also happened yesterday evening after the whole day, where he was trying to lift me up because I had woken up with this anxious mood in the evening where we were at this like little festival. At some point, we were watching the sunset. We were having quite a deep conversation, and I saw a friend of mine in the distance, and I was so excited because I hadn't seen him in months, and he lives in Portugal, so I was not expecting him to be in Cape Town at all. So I jumped out of excitement and I ran up to him to greet him. And I personally did not notice that I had cut the point that my boyfriend was, just sharing with me in the conversation. And I greeted my friend. I introduced my friend to my partner and we had a little chit chat. And then at some point, my friend went back to the party and I noticed the energy shift in my partner. And I went up to him, hey, what's up? Talk to me. What's happened? And then he was unsure whether or not he should communicate why it had hurt him that I had cut his point, that I had cut the conversation, because of two things. One, he mentioned that I had been having such a difficult day. So obviously his whole intention for the day was to lift me up. And he was worried that by him bringing this vulnerable point, this difficult conversation, was going to put me back down again, make me feel guilty or whatever. And two is because he realized that this affected him so much because it came from a past trauma from his family, cutting him off as well whenever he would make points in conversations and feeling a little bit like overseen, et cetera, et cetera. So again, these are two reflections, maybe also interesting for people to notice and to think how they can implement those reflections in their own lives as well.
Yes. So often the most common one is this isn't the right time. This isn't the right time to share this. You know, it's for me, it's been happening a lot in group settings, which is like so uncomfortable because I personally cannot hide. Once I, feel something, it's really hard for me to just sweep it under the rug. I feel I need to address it immediately. And so, well, we can take some space. But anyways, there is never a right time to do it, and it's always going to feel uncomfortable, and you don't want to make that ruin the other person's energy or mood. And so, but remembering that it's a gift for your relationship, for the team, for the partnership to address it, even if you're scared, and bringing that vulnerability of, hey, I'm scared to bring this to you right now because you're not having a good day. It's boom, that opens you up to receive them actually, because you're sharing your heart. So
Definitely. Yeah. And it's also a beautiful balance between communicating directly and time promptly, but also allowing for space if need be, right? Sometimes there's conversations, the harder a conversation is, the more challenging a situation is, the more we actually also need time and space to reflect on our own and then come back together without being reactive, but actually reflective. And so this has happened quite a bit between me and Ricardo, where I've needed my space to be in my own energy, to think back, to reflect, to analyze, to assess. And I noticed that he was a bit more pushy and like wanting to understand what was happening right away, what was wrong with me right away. And it's also, again, the power of communication to be able to share kindly, compassionately, that you are taking your space for your own, that you will be able to talk about it after a walk or after you have an afternoon for yourself or whatever.
My love, you've built a life, you've built the career, you've built the success, but when it comes to love and softening and receiving, you're always the one in control, always thinking, planning, and doing. What if you didn't have to? Soft Girl Season is your invitation to melt into life where you feel safe, supported, and adored, where you actually can trust men, trust God, and trust yourself. Inside, women have found their dream partners, started receiving clients with less effort, and watched their men step up to pamper, cherish, and adore them, all by learning how to soften into their feminine energy. They've gone from feeling numb and guarded to magnetic, deeply loved, and radiant. So if you're ready to stop over-functioning and start being treated like a queen, come inside Soft Girl Season and let yourself be the woman who has it all. Join us using the link in the show notes and receive instant access and start being provided for by God and men.
yeah, I definitely need that at times too, where I don't have the answer at the top of my head. I don't want to just answer because you're pressuring me and I just come up with something. Like I want to actually really feel into my heart what this is, and space is such a beautiful gift for that. And the only, tip I have on that is actually making sure you follow up, is not just taking the space and not coming back to it and pretending like it didn't happen, or, luckily, like my partner, he's so good at always circling back and always making sure that we come back to whatever the issue is we were addressing. And that is so important. And that shows like true commitment to your love. And I also recommend to not take too much time, like not make it like weeks go by or anything, and keep it to under a few days to readdress the topic. Yeah. But a question I wanted to ask is, how have you noticed what has changed in you since being in this partnership and being loved by a man like this? Like, how have you changed?
A lot. I have changed a lot. I always say that he brought back the magic in my life. I've always, been so proud of this aura that I have, this essence that I have that is so, so playful, so alive, so fervent. And I felt like my energy had dimmed a little bit over the last, I don't know, months, years. And thanks to Ricardo and thanks to him bringing back this mindset and this view of the world that everything is magic and that we are magic, that just, brought me back to life, made me see life in such beautiful colors again. And so that is definitely one thing that I've noticed. And then the second thing, which I found equally as important, is that I have now made the decision to be a solo entrepreneur. So I left my freelance job last year already, because now it's 2025. So I left my job in 2024, and it was a huge step for me to now be on my own, right? And the last month of 2024, as I was, creating a name for myself in the nomadic space, etc., I felt very alone and I felt very overwhelmed by all the work that I needed to put out, and all the responsibilities and being very new into this space and creating my own business, it can be very overwhelming. And I remember one of the biggest shifts for me since being in this partnership is how supported I feel. I feel like whatever it is that is in front of me, I will be able to undertake because I have Ricardo by my side, supporting me, loving me, being there to help me, to strategize with me, to brainstorm with me. And that is probably the biggest gift ever, because whatever I do in life, I'm not going to feel alone anymore. And that's just so precious.
Yeah, truly, that's like the best gift ever. And yeah, just having that security is so beautiful. And it just popped in my head. I'm curious if your nervous system has tried to push away or fight like this purity and goodness of how amazing this love is. Like I noticed a lot of self-sabotaging in myself. And so I'm curious if that's come up or you've just been able to receive him fully and like welcome it.
Well, lots of thoughts come up with this question. I remember one of the first things that I noticed was the overwhelming feeling of love that I felt from him. So I'm a super passionate human being. I love with all my heart. If you're a golden people in my life, like I will die for you, right? And it's funny because in the past, one of my best friends mentioned to me that type of love was so much that she didn't know how to handle this love because of her own past traumas, right? Family traumas, etc. We know how that works. So I remember clearly not understanding how someone could not feel deserving of so much love. And it was the first time in my life that with Ricardo, I felt that because he loves, if not as much as I do, even more. And it is a lot to handle. It is a lot of love to handle. So that was interesting to navigate, and I shared with him. And then the other thing that also came up was when you're so certain about someone, when you know that that's your person, when you know that you want to do life with someone, create a family with someone, there's a lot of anxiety that your brain just pushes into you out of nowhere, right? Again, as you were saying, it tries to almost self-sabotage you. So I definitely felt that as well. The anxiety around time, the timelessness of a lifelong relationship, the commitments, everything feels like a lot because suddenly it's real. I don't know if you felt that way as well at parts.
Everything you described, I've definitely felt so viscerally. Yeah, it's all so accurate and it's just so normal. It's so funny. It's like you wanted this your whole life, then it's here and you're like, wait, what? Now what do I do? Now it's here. Is this really?
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
it's so beautiful. I would love to hear in specific, like when you say he has so much love to give, how does that actually show up? What does that look like?
I mean, he will do anything for me. I mean, as long as he has time for it and the ability to do it, like he wants to help me with my business. He wants to help me, exercise and achieve my fitness goals. He wants to help me with every creative project that I have. He wants to just be there for me for anything. He wants to cook for me. He wants to give me massages. He wants to make me feel so good and truly treats me like a queen. He's put me in this pedestal and he's just making sure that I'm taken care of. And he's also communicated to me in a few instances that all his life he just was happy with enjoying life, living of the bare minimum for himself, just like enjoyment was the biggest part of life for him. But now that he has met me, his biggest or his main priority is to make sure that we have a future that we can look forward to and that we have all the things that we are dreaming of having. And that his protector instinct, his like man, man to protect and provide for his woman has sort of turned on. And when he communicates that across, like my heart melts. And I'm a very independent woman, right? I've always provided for myself. I've traveled the world. Like the last decade of my life, all the decisions have been mainly made by me for me. And I didn't think that having someone in front of me sharing that he wants to provide for me, protect me, would ever be something that I desired or craved. But with him, everything has changed. When he communicates this across, I want that. I want him to protect me. I want him to provide for me and for us to build a future together. So yeah, I'm so in love.
That's so good. That's so good. Yeah, that's literally what Soft Girl Season is about, is teaching women how to welcome that provider energy in and that protection energy. And it's so beautiful to watch what shifts in women because like if you're a true feminine core design, like you really are, that is the most, like you described, it makes you melt. Like we
Yeah.
finally get to relax and lean back. And as I've also been independent since I was like five, I was a child that had to grow up at an adult child. Like my mom left when I was young and it was just me, my dad, an only child. Like I had to be there for myself since day one. And so I know how to do it. I'm really good at it. And yet it feels so much better to have a man that is there leading and protecting and guiding. And it's so beautiful. And I really love that you're able to like say yes to that and welcome it and not push it away because as independent women, it can be our first instinct to say we don't need that.
Yeah. And it manifests in the smallest of ways, right? Like he's a true gentleman. He opens all the doors for me, he carries all the bags for me. And I've never been someone who to accept that. It kind of always made me cringe a little bit. But with him, as you said, everything has changed. It's because I've met that person with whom I can relax. And I know that I don't have to prove myself almost. I don't have to show that I can do it without him or that I can hike with a heavy backpack. It's, well, if you want to help me feel more comfortable, if you want to care for me and carry some of my things or, open the doors for me so it's more comfortable for me or to just make me feel treated, cook for me, massage me, like all of these small things, day-to-day things. And that's what I've really noticed a shift in my own feminine energy. And as you said, like I've also carried this masculine energy with me for many, many, many years, probably my entire life as well. And I remember actually like probably 1 or 2 years ago doing a big work, energetic work, and how to like welcome in my more feminine energy with previous connections. But it didn't quite work up until now.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like it takes that person. I mean, I help women through the relationship with God, but to first feel that. But like in the physical world, it really takes someone where your body actually feels that safety because your body can't fake that. Like your body, you can't relax to a man that your body knows can't lead you and that you aren't going to be protected and safe with. And so you have to trust if your body isn't feeling that. Of course, there's trauma and things around it, but there's also just this innate knowing in your system that like he has got you and it's safe to finally let go, which
Yeah,
is so freaking beautiful.
it's true. That's exactly how it feels like.
Yes. Oh. And what are some ways that you notice loving him really helps him feel like you're the best partner for him?
It's always difficult for me to accept and acknowledge that I give him as much as he gives me. And that's probably something I need to work on myself. But I know that I am a very reflective person. I know that I have this ability. I'm a very emotionally intelligent person. I'm able to navigate challenges with a lot of care and empathy. And so, one of the things he's mentioned that he feels very inspired by me is this ability of helping him see situations from different perspectives and bring in this sort of like feminine care and feminine wisdom almost, right? This power of just, yeah, just reflection. And another thing contrary to that, that he mentions has inspired him a lot is also my career and sort of my entrepreneurial mindset and yeah, my achievements in life so far. So it's kind of both sides for him, right? It's that feminine, the caring side, but also the warrior in me.
Yes, yes, I find that too. And I'd love to give the listeners a more specific example. So, what are some ways you help him be more reflective or that inspires him? What does that look like?
Yeah. I mean, some examples come to mind also regarding communication, where certain situations happen that I saw from the outside, where, for instance, he communicated with a third person, with a friend or a family member, or whatever. And I was able to give him perspective on, oh, I think that maybe you overreacted here, or this you could have communicated softer, or put yourself in the shoes of the other person. Not everyone is like you, not everyone is as you, etc. So that helped him a lot. And so I think that would be an example that I could give you on how coming in with a softer voice, with a more, yeah, sort of like holistic view, I think I can truly support him in his also entrepreneurial endeavors. And I think he really values my feedback a lot. And I want to be there, as a sounding board for him, be able to share my view on certain ideas that he has, why something could work, why something couldn't, or I see more challenging, or what, seeing him from the outside, seeing him, his own virtues from the outside. I see him and I see so much incredible potential in him. And he's one of the smartest, most intelligent people that I know. And I want to support him, see that in himself, and be able to really pinpoint his biggest talents so that he can push that and be this most successful man that he can be.
Ah, it's so beautiful. Fascinating. So it's like to a man, like watching his woman want him to be the best version of himself is so beautiful. That really fills him up. And especially like you said, coming from that softness and just wanting the best for him. And, and a lot of men don't come from, healthy mother figures. And so having a partner that can provide that is like just such a deep level of beauty for them. And so I love that you have given.
Yeah. It feels good. And that's the thing. For me, it feels so natural to believe in him, like forever, in the deepest of ways, in the truest of ways. So, yeah, I'm going to be his number one fan for the rest of my life. It's also corny, but it's so true.
I know. No, you get it. Yeah, it's okay. It makes sense. And I'd love to hear what you guys are like, what kind of goals you guys are setting together for your relationship, if you have talked about that.
Oh, it's funny because we actually just yesterday created a sort of map for our life. Because I was feeling that was the creative exercise that he suggested to do to get me out of my head. But because I was feeling so anxious, I felt very anxious to think about a whole lifelong roadmap. How many kids do we want? Where do we want our houses to be? Like it felt a lot. So we broke it down and at least created our roadmap for 2025. So in regards to life plan, if that's what you were asking, we know we want to have, a beautiful family. We know we want to have a couple houses, one in Europe, one here in South Africa. We want to have a comfortable life, but at the end of the day, our biggest value is happiness and truly having a life full of love, community, and in connection with nature. Those are sort of like that is our vision, right? And we definitely would see ourselves living off the grid, living, yeah, in connection with the land, building things with our own hands. We're both very adventure people and we love to create our own rules, to create our own reality. So that's sort of the direction where we're going. Maybe at some point we buy a bus and create, live the van life in that bus for some time. So there's a lot of ideas here and there. But the most important is that so far we've definitely have aligned in the values that we have and the vision of our future life together.
And I think that's so beautiful when you find someone where it so naturally clicks, where you share that similar vision for the future and you can get into that excitement of what can we create together. And that co-creation is there's so much more you can create with someone else than just doing it on your own. And that's why I think partnership is why I want people to still believe in partnership and see the benefit of it besides just being on your own, because it's fun. It's so fun.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And of course, now I think we're both still in that like love bubble, right? In that honeymoon phase. It's definitely, a lifelong relationship will also bring challenges, but it's all about the commitment, the communication, the effort, the love, and just, yeah, knowing why you do it, having that North Star very clear. And that in our case is the family, is the life that we want to live, is the house in nature, all of that.
Yes, yes. Yay! Amazing. Okay, so I think we should wrap this up. And the last question I like to ask is, what is one of your most romantic memories you have?
Most romantic memories I have with Ricardo or in general?
Either or both.
Oh my gosh, there's so many. You're definitely putting me in the spot here, but I would say one of the most romantic memories I have would be with Ricardo at one of the most incredible waterfalls. I mean, this is getting a little bit spicy, but truly like making love on a rock under the waterfall, under the sun, on a crystal clear pool. It's just truly being in connection with nature and feeling each other so alive and so connected as well. Yeah, I will cherish that memory forever.
Ah, yes, I feel it in my body again because like when you're making love with someone, it is like you just can feel so much in your body and their body, and it's like undescribable. And especially that being in nature, I can imagine under this gorgeous scene how beautiful
Yeah.
that was.
Yeah, having him and me with that background, just feeling so connected. It felt like truly we were part of the universe, part of nature itself. And I think for me, having that deep intimacy with him makes me feel so, it's just an added benefit of already the connection that exists. It's like that thing that elevates us even further and further, and that I'm so excited to explore more and more as well. So yeah.
Amazing. So if people want to find you, where can they connect with you?
Of course. Well, I mean, there's many ways in which you can connect with me, but on Instagram, it's Lis Kanzler. So I'm sure you will also add the Instagram handle. And yeah, you can also read my book. It's called Lost in Self, which is a travel memoir that I've written about my nomadic years. And other than that, you can also find me. I will soon be creating a podcast, which is going to be called Deeply Nomad. And if you are a nomad and want to be mentored by me and learn everything there is to learn about the nomadic life, then definitely hit me up on Instagram and we can chat about you joining the Deeply Nomad program.
Amazing. Thanks so much for sharing everything today. Beautiful.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me here. This was so awesome.
You made it to the end of the episode, so now it's time for our snuggly heart breath of the day. Place a hand or both hands, if it's safe to do so, over your heart and take a big breath into your heart center. Open your mouth and let it go. I'm so grateful to have shared this time with you. If you enjoyed this convo, please share with your besties and your fam. And if you're a visual person like me, fly over to YouTube and watch the video. If you want to do a random act of kindness today, please leave a 5-star review so more people in the world can get their heart snuggled. You're helping tremendously when you do this, so thank you so much. And as a gift for doing so, I'll give you my Soften Your Heart Medi that feels like an exhale and a hug from within. When you leave a review and email me the screenshot to heartsnuggles@alivetoenjoy.com, you can also find the email in the show notes and you'll get the free meditation. Sending you the warmest, comfiest hug and lots of unexpected blessings your way. Remember that every single person just wants to be loved. So how can you be loved today?